Hi everyone. Can you hear me? Marshall and Tanisha, if you can give me a thumbs up or an okay. Marshall, Tanisha. Okay, great. Um, thank you. We are waiting for a few more members to come in and then we'll get started.
Yeah. Sit here because we need to figure out the Take for a second. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes. The echo, I think will just, I think that's what has to be.
Just make sure that everybody has their speaker, the mic on the computer, whoever.
Actually, it's Alex.
So,
Can you still hear me?
can you speak again?
Hello?
We hear you, but it is that you make the hour down a little bit. We had to do that in the other room, the bottom down a little bit. You must lower the volume. Yeah, the hour is better.
Let me see. Speak. Can you speak? Is better?
Way better, thank you, Ashley.
Welcome. Thank you.
That's what we do.
Let's see. Can I check if people can still hear me? No, it's not feedback, so I think it's how.
I'll unmute yourself there just to make sure that he can hear you, like ask somebody there, they can hear.
It's fine, but I don't know, I had turned off the mic.
I mean, if they can hear you, someone can acknowledge from the people that are on the call that they can hear you. Then you don't have to do nothing to your laptop.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, I can hear you.
I can hear.
I do hear
Also,
I do
there's
hear,
nothing- you don't have to
little
turn it
feedback,
back
I
on.
guess.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Marshall. All right. So let me.
Hi, yes, Tanisha, we're still sorting out the hybrid bit, and I think it's gonna be a little bit bumpy, not just for this meeting, unfortunately, and so please bear with us. Good evening, everyone. Hope you're all well. Thank you so much for joining tonight. This is our Housing and Human Services Committee meeting. We do now have quorum in person, although I don't anticipate any voting this evening. My name is Marielle Otley, and I am the chair of the Housing and Human Services Committee for Community Board 12. And it's our first hybrid meeting. So as I was just mentioning before we officially started, thank you in advance for your patience as we work through any tech issues that we currently have or that may arise. With that, I'm going to go ahead and ask our committee members who are online first to introduce themselves briefly, and then we'll have our members who are in person to also briefly introduce themselves as we're coming back from the summer break season, but also we have new committee members joining us. So we certainly want to give them an opportunity to introduce themselves. So with that, Michelle, can I turn it over to you?
Sure. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Michelle Lee. I'm a member of the Housing and Human Services Committee and also the treasurer of CP12. So nice to see you all. Pass it to Marshall.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Marshall Vanderpool, formerly first vice president of the Dyckman Resident Association. And I've been a public member of the Housing and Human Services Committee for several years now. And I'll land my plane here. Thank you.
One of Marshall's favorite sayings. Tanisha, over to you. We cannot hear you, Tanisha.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Now we-
Everyone, my name is Tanisha. I am a new community board member. I am also a community organizer, and I'm also the executive director of Parent Support and Parents New York. I see 2 more community board members on here, but I don't see their name. I just see community board, so I don't know.
We're gonna go, yeah, that's the office staff, but thank you, Tanisha. Welcome. Do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself? I'll ask them for members to come here.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Razia Lawrence. I'm brand new to the Community Board 12 as well as this committee. Looking forward to working with them.
Hello, everyone. Jay Bias. I'm over a year now as a member of the board, and it's good to see everyone. That's it on.
Hi, everyone. I'm Emily Marte. I've lived in the Heights for about 30 years, and I've been in the community board probably for a couple of years now. So nice seeing everyone, and hope to make some progress tonight.
I'm Richard Allman. I'm a member of the community board and of this committee. And yeah, it's good to be back in person. The trade-off is that we can't run to the refrigerator or the bathroom. But I think we will probably try and understand it.
Yes, that's exactly right. Thank you so much, Richard. And I also do want to acknowledge, we do have a member of the public here as well. So I don't know if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Sheila. I am not, I didn't grow up here. I'm from Florida originally, but I live in Washington Heights now because I'm going to Columbia School of Journalism.
Okay, well, thank you for joining, and we hope to see you at kind of future meetings as well. All right. So you all will have seen that the agenda for this evening's meeting. For those of you who are not new to the community board, you're familiar with the kind of, our annual process of budget priorities. And so I'm just going to take. Not sure what happened there. Hold on. It still says live on YouTube. Sorry, we just need to make sure we have the recording sorted for minutes. Just give us a minute, guys. So we can continue. Great. So as I was saying, for those of you who are new to the community board, so I know we have Lydia, we also have Tanisha, and for one of our public members, in the fall is when we, as the community board, start to discuss budget priorities. And I'm going to kind of talk a little bit about it. I will say that I may defer a little bit to Richard, because I know that you know quite a lot about this, or a lot more than I do. But ultimately, we are going to kind of go ahead and discuss different priorities as it relates to housing and human services, which is the remit of this committee. Identify priorities as either expenses, which are things that are kind of day-to-day operations, and also discuss kind of capital budget items. So these are kind of more longer term things like construction projects and so on. For the purposes of this evening, we are just discussing them. In October, we'll kind of come together and agree of ranking as a committee, and we'll kind of talk about what that exercise looks like. In the past, what we've done is we've asked everyone to kind of rank from 1 to 5 or however many we have, And then that is submitted to the office staff here. Then generally, later on in the month of October, all community board members receive a really long list of all of the budget priorities for all the committees, at which there's a long exercise of everyone as community board members to rank that as well. And then we get kind of these really long sheets here of the rankings and different items by committee areas. And then that helps kind of feed into what's known as kind of the statement of community district needs, and kind of a report as well that we'll kind of talk about. So that was a really quick overview of the process, but just wanted to see if anyone from the committee wants to add anything that I may have missed. I'll pause there for a moment. Did I write anything? Did I kind of capture most of the points?
Very out of the position.
Not a problem. Not a problem. That's certainly understandable. I will say, just to kind of add further context to it to help all of you. So this budget is so the way the budget works, it's beginning July 1st. So it would be for July 1st, 2024 until, June 30th of 2025. So that's kind of why we're doing it now. Again, we're submitting this in late October, then all the community boards across the city then kind of submit it to the office of OMB. And so they kind of pull that all together. I'm kind of sharing how this, and then between November and March, there's a preliminary budget that's then shared with different agencies. There's an opportunity for public comment as well. And so it's a really long, kind of drawn out process. Later on within the year, the city council also has an opportunity to have public hearings on it. And so I did some of this for those of you who are on the committee. I did share the document with all of you that kind of explains the process. It's about 9 to 10 pages. So I do encourage you all to take a look for further details on that. So with that, I would like to kind of just talk a little bit about what the committee last year agreed on or talked about, and then we can use it as a starting point. For those of you who are remote, you would have received this by email. For those of you in person, they're here and you can take a look. We can start with the capital budget. And you'll see on the far right-hand corner, the committee rankings for the different issue areas. Yes, please. Yeah, that's nice.
This is number chapter number. This is the numbers. And then the other time to do numbers.
Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
We have to rank for home. Sorry. No, all good. That's what I get used to. It's very easy to get confused. And so if you look again, we're looking at the one that says capital budget. And if you look at the right-hand column, you'll see the committee rankings for those particular committees that are there. We are the third, Housing and Human Services. And this is what we put in kind of order of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, as our top priority, provide funding for the construction of affordable, accessible housing for seniors. The second one, provide funding for the construction of 100% long-term affordable housing units based on the average median income throughout CB12 to nonprofits, community land trusts, and land banks that are partnered with nonprofit developers. 3, provide increased funding for housing at risk and transitioning individuals and families. 4, provide increased money for AEP and PPP programs for the preservation and rehabilitation of distressed buildings in CB12. And 5, provide funding for the construction of supportive housing for LGBTQ youth. I think one thing to note with kind of those 5 priorities that were agreed last year, 3 of them fall within the top 10 of the entire board's priorities. And there's about like 50 or almost 60 different priorities. Clearly, housing and kind of human services are, it's a really key issue. And you may have seen, even in kind of the statement of community and district need, I think they outlined kind of 3 big issue areas within Community Board 12, and one of them was affordable housing. So I'll pause there, and kind of take an opportunity to, I know for some of you, especially our newer colleagues, you're seeing this for the first time, and it's very big. It's a little bit overwhelming, but helpful to kind of take any feedback, from anyone who wants to kind of reflect on that, put forward any suggestions. Again, in terms of the process, we are not agreeing anything this evening. This is just presenting and having a discussion. In October, we will do that. But it's helpful to kind of start digesting this information now. So the floor is open to committee members.
I have a question about the ranking. So those 3 items were ranked in the top 10 after the voting. I haven't ranking for voting.
Correct. So what happens is once the office receives the rankings for all the committees, they send a spreadsheet to all 50 community board members. They ask everyone to rank it, and then they average it. So this is kind of what came out across all, as the community board provide funding for, for senior housing for seniors, so on and so forth.
So every fiscal year, annual report, do we ever want to kind of continue on with that?
So it's ultimately up to us. What I've seen, in some cases, there are things that are continuing priorities and continue to ask. I think one of them, and certainly welcome feedback from all of you, but certainly the bit around more affordable and accessible housing. We've obviously seen a lot more construction in kind of our areas, but are they really affordable? That's kind of a lot of the feedback that we've had. We now have kind of these towers that are in wood, so on. And so there's that, but then there's also an opportunity to present other priorities that we feel are important part of the community.
So it would definitely be a good idea, and like everyone can review this and then actually think of, what you believe we should recycle and what we should add differently based on the circumstances that we have right now going on in the city. There's a lot of housing and human services issues that we could add to this list, as long as we have proper framing and because there's a lot of things that I was learning along the process when I was doing the budgeting, because some of the things in this list, what's this the register of community board budget requests. I'm it says that they adopted it and why they didn't, if they didn't.
Yeah.
And they would say something like, oh, it doesn't make sense to us, or we don't have enough in the budget for this. So it would definitely, I know that it's a lot of paperwork here, a lot of documents, but there's a reason for all of it. So I just recommend that everyone really looks at it and think about what's going on in the city right now and what they would like to add. If they really do want to add something or substitute something or say, oh, I don't think this is irrelevant, or they haven't been applying this anyway. We should take this out and put this in instead. Because this issue is rampant right now in housing and human services. So, there's a million things you could put on this list for sure. So even if you don't know how to use the language, bring it up to us, send us an email, and then in the next meeting, we could bring it up and see how we could reframe it based on the feedback that we got on the other documents, the bigger documents, to see how we could actually put it here and make a difference.
That's, thank you, Emily. That's exactly right. I think it's really helpful. And again, this was also included in the email to look at that document, the register, because it will then say, as she mentioned, whether or not it was funded, but also helpful for us to know where things are at. Obviously, some of these are kind of continued as, some of them are a bit newer. And I think there's a wider exercise for us as a committee to possibly just look at, we often submit these things and we don't really know where's the follow-up. Have they actually followed up with agencies? Have they actually done what they agreed that they would do? And then how can we as a community board support accordingly? So just wanted to see if there's anything else on that point regarding the capital, if anyone has any kind of particular areas, I think, as you mentioned, we need to kind of agree a timeline for everyone to kind of review and think about. We'll need to obviously discuss at our next meeting in the beginning of October. We can set up, agree a date where those could be submitted ahead of time and then share them and then have a full discussion. Then and at that meeting, or maybe a few days after, we kind of need to agree the ranking as a committee, which is kind of has been the process in years past. But I also want to check for our members online if there are any questions or any comments. Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Were you discussing a document that you had circulating among those members at the physical meeting there? As far as the spreadsheet? I mean, I've seen these spreadsheets before and I've sort of gone through the process, and you're kind of right. You really don't know what really happened at the end of all this exercise. But well, no, I'm that's more of a clarification I wanted, and I'm gonna land. Thank you.
Thanks, Marshall. Yes, no, that's exactly right. I mean, but they were also sent in an email, not that long ago, so it was around maybe 3 or 4 this afternoon, when I received the documents from the team. You haven't received it? Okay, I'll make
No,
sure.
I didn't see it. I haven't gone through my email since I got in. I got in maybe like about 6:25, so I haven't had a chance to look at any emails. I'll look for it though.
Okay, completely understandable. And again, just to kind of reiterate, we're not making decisions this evening. And again, recognize that we've all received it kind of quite late. So it's not enough time to really look through everything, and kind of come to, some points that we want to share. But just wanted to flag that you have it now, or you should have it. And if you don't, let me know, I'll recirculate it. But any kind of big burning points on this, if not, we can kind of quickly highlight the expense budget and then talk and move on to the next point on the agenda. Not seeing any.
Oh, sorry, I have a quick question.
Yes.
So I'm looking at the document and none of the ones that our committee has tracking codes. And I don't know if that's just because they're new or if they're just not, they don't have any, because the tracking codes you can look over and see like how people respond, how the government agency responded, right?
That's my understanding, yes.
So ours don't have tracking codes, you say?
In the 2 documents that I see, the fiscal year CB12 Manhattan fiscal year 24 expense budget rankings, like some of them have tracking numbers, like Parks and Cultural Affairs has like a lot of theirs have tracking numbers, but ours just didn't seem to. And I don't know if that's just because they're like old repeats.
If you want to look at the one that says fiscal year 2024 executive budget register, that has all the tracking numbers. It's not in order of how you want to see it right now, but if you go through it, I'll tell you, the food pantries one is on page 14 of the document I just said, fiscal year 2024.
Yeah, and sorry, just for context, because I just want to make sure that, our kind of colleagues that are newer, the item that Jay's referring to now is on the expense budget. So if you look at the expense budget, and we're the 3rd committee down. This is the kind of the long spreadsheet with all the priorities. And so, yes, go ahead. Where you were.
So this other sheet has all the tracking numbers for whatever were the requests, and then the comments, the executive budget response, which are OMB's Office of Budget Management, budget, and their response to our requests.
Do you have that?
Do you have it,
document,
Michelle?
Do I have what?
The document that says fiscal year 2024 executive budget register.
Fiscal year 2024 executive
Budget
budget. No, maybe it's in a different email. It's not the one Marielle sent earlier.
It's the one, no, it's in the same email. It's actually, the document in the email is called FY 24 MN 12 executive budget.
Yes, I have that, the PDF.
Yes. And if you scroll down, you'll then see the
Uh-huh.
tracking. Starts at about.
Right, yes.
The
I
tracking-
see the tracking codes, but I'm trying to tie the tracking codes to the other document. So you see the other document, copy of CB12 FY 24 capital priorities full board final. So if you
Michelle,
click into that one,
It's only because you're talking about the rankings, right?
That's different.
The rankings are old because this document was prepared. Well, it says here 2022, right, when we first did it. So we didn't have the tracking numbers. Now we have the tracking numbers because this is what happened after they passed the budget this year in July.
got it. So we'll just have to search for the text to find where they were. So like search food pantry or something like that.
If you
And
want.
see
you
how
can-
they responded.
Yeah, if you skim through, you can look at where it says responsible agency. And if you see Human Resource Administration or HPD, those are ours.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. Okay, yes, let me look through it. Thank you.
Super helpful, Dave. Thank you. Really good question, Michelle. Tanisha, I see your hand. Just 1 second. So just again, for context in terms of timings of how things happen, the two spreadsheets that are titled CB12 FY 24 capital budget rankings, and then the other one expense budget rankings. Or it should say, but anyway, these two, this is just what the community board agreed on. And then this was what was submitted to OMB. The register that Jay is referring to is then kind of pulled together, kind of what's done centrally at OMB with the comments of the agencies based off of what we sent in from these kind of two long spreadsheets. But yes, you're right. There's an exercise for all of us to take a look at that register, look at what the responses were, and to help inform our discussion in October. And as I mentioned, and I think Marshall, you made this point quite well, we do need to think about and look at, really after we kind of submit things, what happens? So what's the follow-up? And so I think that's something that we can do as a committee. Tanisha, over to you.
I'd like to suggest that we make sure everyone has the information, because I don't see it in my email either. So if you could resend it, because it's kind of, I'm a new board member. I don't know kind of what's going on. You can't hear me? I'm a new board member. I kind of don't know what's going on. And so if I don't have the information in front of me,
We can't hear you. We want to make sure that we can hear your comment. So I just want to make, I don't know, it sounds a bit muffled. So I don't know if you can speak more closely into the mic, please.
I don't know why it looks, I don't know what's going on with this Zoom meeting, but usually everyone can hear me. So I don't know, maybe we need to check the technical. Can you hear me now?
You sound better now. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm saying that I can't find the paperwork in my email. And I would just suggest that everyone has the paperwork, if you could resend it, because if I can't see what we're talking about and we're discussing, then I'm really not part of the group. I don't know if anybody, but was it something something different than community board? Because I get a lot of emails from the community board. So if you could just send it again so that we all can participate before we have this discussion, that would be amazing.
So Tanisha, thank you for your comment. It was sent today at 7:10 p.m. this afternoon at 5:10, excuse me. And it was on the back of the email. It says tonight, Thursday, September 7th, 2023. And it was sent to the email that you provided to the community board. I can resend it. I would say just double check. Thank you, Jay. Super. Perfect. And you actually responded to that same email chain saying that you would be virtual. So it's on that same email chain. That's where you should find the documents. And for the record, the documents were received, they were sent to me this afternoon at noon. So we just got them today. Let us know if you still need it to be sent, but I think Jay just resent. Hopefully you can access it now. Okay. Anything else on budget priorities?
No, so last year was the 2022, that's when we finalized it.
Okay.
And the way they do fiscal years, basically, that was the fiscal year 24, because when they passed the budget in July of this year, it goes all the way up to June of next year, end of June, so that's. So next, the one that we're about to do now is for the fiscal year 25.
Correct. Okay, so starting 1 July to 2024 to June 30, 2025.
Okay.
Does that help with
Yeah.
the context of the years?
Mhm. And then what Michelle was talking about with the tracking numbers, you said they're not there.
Because
because-
this ranking document was our internal documents that we submitted. And now we finally have this, which we received today. That has the tracking numbers for those requests.
Oh, yeah, because I mean, there's some, you do have tracking numbers, that's why.
That's because they reused what they kept for exactly the same thing. Remember we talked about this?
Yeah, yeah.
Looked through it last year and we were like, why are we requesting the same thing when they're saying they're not gonna do it?
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Thank you, Jay. Michelle? So if you have your hand up.
Yeah, so I think it would be helpful for us to pull together like, okay, what happened to those requests, like what the tracking numbers are in this document, so we can just like easily pull that across and see like, oh, we requested more funding for food pantries. That's tracking number 312-202-455C. And their response was the request has already been funded, because it doesn't make sense to request it again if they say they've already responded to it like last year, you know? I always find that it's hard to engage with the responses, to be honest, because a lot of them are really vague. They'll be like, oh, you know, we already funded it. Oh, we funded it in other priorities. They tend to be pretty non-specific. So it's like, just like, for me personally, I always find it hard to engage in this process.
Thanks, Michelle. Yeah, I certainly agree with you. Not the most user-friendly at all.
Oh, and B is the link that, right?
Correct. Kind of coordinating the different agencies for the input. So what I hear is, and let me know how you all feel. Again, because we've just received this information today, I don't think, I want to give everyone time to review, kind of formulate their own thoughts, whether it's to kind of submit new requests or follow up on old ones, have a chance to read through the register. Also, please, I strongly encourage you to read the statements of community district needs. That was also attached in that document, and community board budget requests for our district. I think it does a really good job of kind of capturing all of these bits and pieces. And then what we can do is maybe kind of based off of what we did last year, maybe Emily, you and I can pull together those tracking codes, share it just to make it a little bit easier for everyone. And that can be a starting point for the discussion in October. But I also encourage you to come with your own thoughts and ideas so that we can have a fruitful conversation. Does that sound okay with everyone as a way forward on this item?
Yes.
Should we ask, clear with that too?
Should we ask folks to like just write, I mean, actually, I don't know if that'll help, like just bringing notes, not just like random notes, but maybe top 3 things that you would like to see in housing and human services, like in our region to be either fixed or, and then maybe somehow we could find the language next meeting, because I find that meeting was so stressful. We were so tired by the time we got to the budget that we didn't even like think, we were like, oh my God, there's so many issues going on that we're just gonna recycle what we have. But if we like actually come ready with, I think we should tackle this issue, then maybe we could come up with the wording that day.
I think that's a good suggestion. So, what Emily suggested is, in addition to kind of what I just talked about, reviewing the rankings, the tracking codes, responses, thinking about your own thing, actually come with your own prioritized list of kind of 1, 2, 3, for both budget and expenses. So at least we have a starting point for a conversation, and then through the meeting in October, we kind of work through what that wording can be. What I recall from previous years is that in the October meeting, we would identify, or agree what the priorities are. And then subsequently, normally offline, in like a Google spreadsheet of some sort, committee members would then go in and kind of rank 1 to 5 or whatever the case may be. And then that is what is then submitted to the office ahead of the October general meeting. So is everyone kind of clear on next steps for this process? Okay, great. Thank you everyone for engaging in that. I know it's a bit, it's a big task, but an important one. And I think, I guess one other thing I would just highlight is that it's important to get kind of more input on this. And so as much as possible, spreading the word to our neighbors, our friends, our networks about the meeting in October. So that way, if we also have some input as well on some of this. Okay. Moving on, monthly updates from elected representatives. I don't see any elected representatives. And I know that I haven't had a chance to kind of touch base with any of them over the summer. And so for that, generally that's kind of higher up in the agenda, kind of got mixed up, but it's fine for now. What I would say is that hopefully for October, Emily, maybe you and I can follow up with the elected representatives, and we have asked them to come and give a 5-10 minute update on what they've been working on. I know what we've been also have been doing, if you recall from the summer, we also were inviting community providers to talk a little bit about some of the work that they've been doing as well. I think we should continue to do some of that. And I think this is kind of going into the next agenda item, which is kind of discussion of committee goals. But I anticipate the October meeting will be quite lengthy because we have to focus kind of a full discussion on the budget priorities. So just wanted to flag that. But I do want to pause in case any of you have been engaged with some of our elected representatives over the summer and want to kind of provide a short update if you have one on what they have been working on or anything that we as committee should be aware of. Tanisha?
Yeah, well, we have been working with Carmen De La Rosa, Councilwoman Carmen De La Rosa, on her co-governance committee. So we worked on a survey that we are now circulating through the community to figure out what we want the councilwoman to focus on, first, second, third, however you want to put it, but what's important to the community. So right now we are currently gathering surveys and doing outreach. The plan is to collect like 2,000-3,000 surveys and then to have a people's assembly. So I can report on that and what Carmen De La Rosa, Councilwoman Carmen De La Rosa is doing. Assemblyman, also we had a block party. We had a big block party on 163rd, a block that hasn't had a block party in over 40 years. My organization made it happen. Assemblyman Santos was there. Carmen De La Rosa was there. She brought out a table. We had the public advocate's office there. We had a lot of support. We had the district leader there. we had a lot of support for the community. And I also know that there will be the second annual Peace Walk is happening on Saturday with Assemblyman Santos. And I think, everyone is going to be there. Carmen De La Rosa, I know Councilwoman has to go to the Labor Day parade. There's a lot of things happening on the 9th this Saturday, but I do know that that's what they have been working on. I really have to give both Santos and De La Rosa their props of really being out here and trying to interact with the community this past summer.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Super helpful. I know I'm on their newsletters and things, so I kind of saw some of that happening, but thank you for that update. Super helpful. And yeah, I mean, as you've done, kind of, if you can share more information about the Peace Walk and those types of things, I'm sure the staff wouldn't mind circulating that for the wider community to get involved to participate. Super helpful.
Do we have that survey, or is that like from your organization?
No, y'all don't have the survey yet, but I will definitely share it with you so that the community board can share it out and see if they can get people to fill it out. It's a kind of lengthy survey, but what I have found is that people like paper copies more than the digital copies, so that they could take their time and fill it out. But it also, will attract the people that really care about the community. We understand that the people that fill out these surveys really want to be involved and really care about the community and want to see it be productive. So I will share the link with you after the meeting or while we're on the meeting. I'll figure it out.
Sounds good. Super helpful. Thanks, Tanisha. All right, so we can go ahead and move on to the discussion of committee goals. Emily, do you kind of want to maybe talk on this? I'll turn over to you.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Okay, so I sent it not too long ago as a link on the thread that Marielle sent with all of these documents. And it's a Google, sheet where everyone could contribute to it. And I basically just wrote down the notes that we had in the beginning of the year when Catherine started her term, that she just kind of wanted to have a different ambiance with the goals of all the committees. And she asked us to identify 3 to 5 SMART goals for 2023. So specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time bound. And she had a series of questions like, what's in your committee's pipeline for 2023? Are there topics or groups you'd like to introduce or re-engage? Are there special activities that you'd like to plan and implement? And how is your committee feeling about hybrids? And are you willing to attend in person next year? Or which is what's happening right now for the first time. So what I was able to do with all of the notes that we took down, I separated it because this happened on January 5th, into external and internal goals. External just meaning like what we want to do in our actual region and our community. And then internal just meaning like what we want to see within the committee, Housing and Human Services Committee. So topics such as mental health, addressing landlord issues in the region, public forum for Fort Washington, community information database, because we were thinking about doing like the resource directory a while back and it kind of came up again. Building and maintaining strong partnerships with elected officials, agencies, and organizations. And having them like present pretty frequently and updating us, addressing fires in the neighborhood. That was all external. And then internal, prioritizing policy and budget when addressing issues throughout the year to better inform the budget, capital, and expense. Because you guys are going to see in the next meeting, as I experienced last year, it is a little bit stressful if you know, it's like after work, everyone just wants to eat and like get back to their family. And then we also have major issues going on in the city and we just end up recycling everything. So it's kind of important if this is like something that comes up in every meeting where it's like, this is a big issue. Maybe we could make this an item on the budget, capital or expense, which I'm gonna ask Jay to explain in the next meeting again, because I completely forgot the difference between capital and expense. But yes, and then reevaluate how we delegate meetings better. Because I guess, you know, if you do look at other meetings, like having certain explanations or how to like talk about certain things better, have a structure or series of steps when decision making and post resolution, so that comes with the follow-up on like every single thing that we like finally come up with. And then collaborating with other committees, which we already started doing with the Health and Environment Committee, land use. So we've been doing well with that one, and how we can address human services better. And that's what we're trying to do by, like we went to one of these community fairs and there was tons of human services out there that a lot of people do not know about. And money goes into these things. So we need to know more about this. So that's why I'm going to try and invite them to our meetings as much as I can. And yeah, the last item was in person or virtual, but now it's hybrid. So yeah. So I'm not sure if anyone has like any feedback, anything they'd like to add or edit on that. If anything, the document, I sent it to everybody, so everyone's free to either comment or make changes onto it. Which would be perfectly fine, but anyone have any comments right now?
I have one, but I want to make sure, just give everyone a chance first to speak. If anyone has one. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I put this on here, obviously with the summer break, you know, everyone's getting back into the swing of things. As you all know, we'll have meetings, you know, between now and end of June, but of course, the work of the community doesn't stop just because, you know, we're not meeting. And so I think there is a bit around kind of coming back to this. I think some of those still stand true. But I'm happy to, as Emily said, if there are kind of other thoughts, once you gotta take, you know, a closer look at it, think about it, that you think we should also add or adjust accordingly, then we can. I think part of it is then, once we do agree what the committee goals are, figuring out what's the plan to implement and kind of what are the next steps. So how are we going to do that? I think we've done okay. I think with some we've been quite good, particularly inviting, having more elected representatives on meetings, you know, members from nonprofit organizations joining us, more engaging from agencies, which has been, I think, a struggle of the committee in the past. So there has been kind of some movement on some issues, but I also think there are some areas where maybe we haven't been as active that maybe we can kind of work on. So again, I think once it's kind of think about it and come back with for further discussion. And I think within that, if there are things that you are particularly interested in that fit within the remit of the committee, I think that's, you know, let us know, because it's certainly more than a two-person team. And many of you have stepped up in the past, and would certainly appreciate that, and certainly want to give you the opportunity to do so as well. So the next item I put on here is the migrant crisis. I don't think there's too much to kind of explain. I'm sure you're all aware of what's happening, you know, with the migrant crisis. I know over the summer, there was an issue, you know, where there were migrants that were near I believe it was Vanderbilt Hotel, you know, constant kind of hug and control between the city taking on some of the costs to be able to support our asylum seekers and kind of asking for federal funding. And I think it certainly put a lot of pressure on New York City, but I also think it's certainly a topic that we as a committee should address and talk about. one thing I wanted to share on a kind of more personal note is that I will be participating in a trip to the border in 2 weeks. And so doing some work on kind of immigration and hoping to learn kind of from what people are doing there. What are some lessons that we can then kind of bring to New York City, or at least just right here in our own community of Washington Heights and Inwood, on how do we address the migrant crisis. So just wanted to flag that, but also want to open to see if anyone has any comments or thoughts on it. I'm sure there's probably a lot of comments and a lot of thoughts on it, but as it relates to the remit of the committee and what we can possibly do.
Question, please. I'm not really, like I've been here only a month. So how has the migrant crisis impacted Washington Heights directly?
So for the record, I am not an expert. This is me reading the news and not reading all of it either. But from what I have seen, obviously there's a lot of pressures on our shelters. There are shelters in our community. I saw on the news this morning, there's a lot of concerns about the influx of children in schools as well. So how do we make sure that our schools are well resourced to be able to, provide a safe, environment for these children? While also, and I think this is something that I picked up on, there's a lot of tension within the city. This is me speaking more broadly, not specific to Washington Heights, at least in, from what I've seen in news reports about how do we support migrants who are coming to New York City while also addressing the needs of those who are here as well. Because right now it's the highest number of homelessness that we've had in years. At least from the latest survey from the Department of the Services, it's over 80,000. That's those that are accounted for, not those that are unaccounted for. So I think, I think there's a lot of different issues. And so I think there's a point about, I think to your question, that we as a committee can do a bit more research on exactly what's the exact impact within Washington Heights and Inwood. I don't know what that is, but I anticipate that it kind of touches on a lot of those issue areas that we see happening across the state, not just. Michelle?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yep.
Sorry, this is a little bit off topic, but I just thought of it. Like going back to the thing that Emily was talking about with the priorities, a couple of things came up for me. I was like, oh, we have all this affordable housing that's being built in the community, but, can we help spread the word about the new houses that are coming on the market? I know 37 Hillside finished, and they came to one of our meetings at the end of last year and distributed flyers. So I wonder if we can kind of like get the word out that, hey, there are, a lot of affordable units coming on the market for seniors. They're located at 37 Hillside. Here's how you would go ahead to apply for a unit. So I'm just wondering if folks have connections or ideas on where to post that information. So that's one thought. And the second thought is, I know we want to visit BRC. Remember, they're the ones who are building the shelter, for the men's shelter over in Inwood. So if anyone's interested, let me know. I would love to coordinate a meeting, and they basically would like to invite us over to see their other location in the Bronx. So if anyone is interested, just reach out to me and I'll coordinate with Muzzy and his team so we can check it out.
Great. Thanks, Michelle. Can I suggest that we take those items, one under old business, the site visit, and then the other item that you talked about under new business on the outreach? Because I just want to make sure.
Yes.
The crisis first, in case anyone else has.
Yeah. Sorry, it's a bit out of order.
All good. So we can certainly address them. Thank you, Michelle. Anything on the migrant crisis point?
Yeah, I'm wondering if there's any place that we could get data on the maybe how many people have been sent to Washington Heights, how many children maybe are in the schools. Just get, even if it's like a general number, I'm not sure if they're even collecting those numbers. It's a little bit chaotic. It's like I said, I've been watching this too. I don't know if anybody has a grip on what exactly is going on, but if we can get some roundabout numbers and find out exactly where the impact might be felt, then maybe we should be able to strategy.
Yeah, no, really great point. I mean, there are a couple of, kind of nonprofit organizations that work in the area. And I think they might probably have a better sense that focus on kind of housing and human services, and they might have a better pulse, so to speak, on the issue and have to be direct impact here in our community. And so, yeah, it's for sure. I think that, because I am nowhere near an expert on this. I'm learning just as much as all of you are. And so I think it's important to make sure, you know, that goes back to our committee goals about how do we work with partners to help to further the objectives of the committee.
So what is it that you think we can do as a committee board about that particular issue? I mean, I guess since it's so multi-layered and it's impacting us in so many different ways, I don't even know like where to begin with, like, I mean, you're doing something, you're going to the border, but like, you know, for community members here, or what policy can be created so that being that we already have all these issues and New York seems to be more congested like every single day, how, you know, refugees are still always sent here and we're always providing them with things that we can't even like, provide for most of the people in our community. But I also don't know the whole story. Yeah, just like, what's our bandwidth? What can we do about stuff like this?
Yeah, no, I think really good question. And it's something also thought that I had when I had suggested it for the agenda. I mean, I think we should talk about it at minimum. Because there obviously is an impact and it's impacting everything. But I also think, you know, as you mentioned, it starts with how is it impacting us directly? What exactly is that and what's happening? So is it that, you know, a particular part of the practice, me not knowing as an example, they received a lot of, you know, memories or migrant families in that area. Is it that, you know, one particular school is having an issue with, you know, overcapacity because they received a lot of migrant children? We don't know until we ask. And so I think at least asking is the first point. And then from there, we can say, okay, well, what can we tangibly do right here locally? I think that's also the point, you know, what can we hear within the remit of the committee can we do? But I also think within that, as you mentioned, because it's multifaceted, it will certainly impact everything we do. And keeping that in the back of our mind. That's my thought on this, but Michelle?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think I would love to know more about kind of how the migrant crisis is affecting Washington Heights, and love to hear news as you guys find out more. I also know that Liz Ritter, she does the Uptown Wagon stuff. It's like a free store that is also I think co-hosted by Borough President Mark Levine. And what they do is they collect donations of like clothing and other items. And I know she's mentioned to me like the migrants are able to are a lot of the clients that they serve, and that's happening on the 21st and 22nd of September.
Yeah, the Armory, I believe they're hosting it, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
What's it called, the organization?
So it's like an initiative. It's called, is it the Uptown Wagon Free Store, is it?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and so it's pretty much, as Michelle said, just kind of people like collect donations, you know, gently used clothing, those types of things. And they'll kind of have storefront for, you know, night or two. And anyone is welcome to go and you know, kind of give what they need. So it's free. Or it's free. Oh, it is free. Okay. Tanisha?
Yes, I think it's important as the housing committee for the community board, housing and something else you are. What am I missing?
HHS.
Yeah, all right, yeah, okay. Well, you know, I think it's important that as the community board, as the committee, that we talk about how our communities are being pit against each other out of scarcity when we live in the richest city in the world. one of the richest cities in the world, if not the richest city in the world. And as an organizer and as someone who feeds the people and as someone who helps with this type of stuff, what I am seeing is that our communities are being pit against each other. It's the, can you hear me? Can you hear me? No, hold on. I'm gonna take my speaker off because this is a lot. Give me 1 second. I don't know what's going on. Give me 1 second. Oh, Jesus.
Can you hear me now? No? Can't hear me?
Power off.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? No. All right, I'll be back. Let me fix it. How about now? So can you hear me now? No, I can't hear.
Can you hear me? Hello? I'm muted
Well,
here.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Hello?
I can hear you. Can
No,
you hear me?
on this computer, I think the owl went out. So I don't know that or thingy thing. I don't know. I'm so confused. Yeah, I don't know. Sorry. It looks like the audio. So we ended up losing your audio, Tanisha. So just give us a minute. So I've now unmuted on the laptop. So I think for us, we'll just have to speak quite loudly just to make sure that everyone can hear us. Just give us a second because now Jay and Emily have gone. But I do want to keep an eye on the time so that we can wrap up the meeting for this evening. Hold on. Tanisha, can you hear us? Well, I just unmuted here, so I think we'll just need to use this for now. So that, because we're almost ending the meeting anyway, and so we'll just talk like.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, Marshall.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, I'm back.
Okay, before we go over to you, Marshall, I do want to give the floor back to Tanisha. So Tanisha.
That's fine.
Thank you. Tanisha, we lost you. There was a problem with the audio here. And we're now connected through the audio on the laptop. So we're going to kind of try to speak loudly into the laptop. Can I just check that you can, sounds like you can hear us, right?
Okay, yeah, I can hear y'all. Can y'all hear me?
Yes, I think the
Okay,
last
because
heard, I think you were talking a little bit about how, some of the communities are, unfortunately, because of the scarcity of resources, are being or feel like they're being, kind of pitted against one another.
No, yeah, they are being pitted against each other. Like, let's make no mistake, by, our elected officials. And what it is causing is it is causing a lot of strife and discontent for the migrants. There are people that have been here for years, that are born here, that can't get the resources that they need. So when we see, even though they're really not doing what they should be doing for our asylum seekers, migrants, they could be giving them a whole bunch of more help, which they're not. But when they advertise and when they say, oh, we're a sanctuary city and we're going to help everybody, and all of this stuff, it really is causing a problem. But what happened with the Roosevelt, what I am seeing also is that we have a lot of migrants, asylum seekers that are coming here that are not Spanish speaking people, that are coming here from a lot of African countries. And they are even being, even more disservice, because everybody portrays this narrative of that it's just Spanish speaking people. So, there has been times where we have to go to shelters and have somebody, maybe they speak French, maybe they speak Portuguese, where we've had to find people to come communicate with them because they are missing services like showers and things of that nature, because there's no language access. So we have a lot of different problems going on that is making the housing crisis even worse and is pitting communities up against each other. So I would like to see our committee, our community board, actually hold these elected officials accountable, these leaders accountable, that is actually portraying this narrative. This is not the first time that we've seen something like this, and it won't be the last unless we really put our foots down and be like, no, we need to help every person that needs housing. We have enough empty apartments in New York City to house every person here. Why aren't we doing it? And why are we putting these poor communities, these low income communities, against each other? I think that's very important to discuss and talk about here. Thank you.
Thank you, Tanisha.
Some of those
Just really
shelters-
quickly, because I know Marshall also had a hand up. Go ahead.
Are some of those shelters you've been visiting in Washington Heights?
We have a lot of shelters here. I don't know if y'all know that or not, but we have a lot of shelters here, and there are migrants being brought to Washington Heights. It's just not, it's not publicized as much as, the people being brought to like the Roosevelt, right? Because that's a white area, a prominent area. So of course they're highlighting that, but they're here, they're in Harlem. They're, there's in Harlem, we have 19 shelters. In Washington Heights, like, we're right behind them. And they're closing down shelters. They just closed down a couple of shelters. So we really need to, as much as we can, the community board, the housing committee, we really need to highlight this, because it's only getting worse. Without devolving people's names and their situations, I can tell you that it's a horror show, and it's only getting worse. So there's that.
Thank you, Tanisha, for sharing. And that's kind of why I think it is, as Tanisha mentioned, important to bring this up. There's that aspect, and so many others as well. Marshall, last point for you on migrant crisis, and then we can quickly move on to old business and new business.
Okay, I'll try to keep it short. To me, this is the most challenging issue that has come to New York City it is a challenging question. On a humanitarian level, I can understand how people want a better life for themselves. But I'm also sympathetic to what Mayor Adams said today about this is going to break New York City. I'll leave it with this. There's an expression I have that I've learned And there are limits. There are limits. You can only do so much. There are only so much resources. I mean, that's the whole principle of economics, doing whatever with scarce resources and all that. And I don't know, maybe that's something that has to be worked through as something that will reoccur in our conversations at these meetings. And I'll land my plane here.
Thank you, Marshall. Thank you for your points. I don't think there are any other hands, so I'm gonna go ahead and move on to noting the time. Old business. I know Michelle had a point, but I don't see Michelle on the line, so just as a refresher, she was talking about setting up a site visit. So as you recall, there we have the Bari Residence Committee. I always forget their acronym, what it stands for, but they are building the men's shelter up in Inwood, and they offered to host a site visit for the committee and kind of larger community. It sounds as if for one of their sites in the Bronx. Michelle has been kind of leading on those efforts, and so we can kind of follow up with her offline to identify a date, and if you're available to attend that, please do so. Is there anything else on old business?
Wait, I have a question.
Yep.
Going back to, so sorry, I'm like, going back to the migrant crisis.
Really quickly?
Yeah.
Yes, we
Do we
moved.
dip into our budget to like provide resources for them, or is it like a federal? I don't know the technicality. Yeah.
Richard?
I think that's where the political argument is right now.
Mhm.
Maybe there's another word for that. Most of our local and state leaders, and they express themselves differently on this, are saying there need to be more federal resources. That it is way short of that, of what's needed. The one question I would raise, and it's a question I don't know the answer to, but I believe a lot of New York City's compliant actions are driven by a court order of 40 plus years ago on the right to shelter. You know, it certainly is being interpreted, if I'm correct on that, it's certainly being interpreted in a very liberal way, but it also was a court order that set off much of the affordable housing development over the last 40 years. If that is the right read, it's just a very thorny political issue to deal with.
Thank you, Richard. One for us to, I mean, there's a couple of action points on there. I think the first is, as we mentioned, just figuring out what exactly is happening just right here. And then that's something, and then we can kind of discuss, okay, what can we tangibly do here within the committee? I know Tanisha brought up some suggestions, and I'm sure more will come from what we gather from that information. So thank you. Moving on to new business. I know Michelle suggested kind of doing a bit, or being a bit more proactive on outreach as it relates to kind of housing opportunities and things. I did see the community board, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought I saw the announcement for, what is it, the Eliza?
Yeah,
They did send that, right? That's what I thought. I mean, we always have the point about how accessible is a community board email list. You know, not everyone is on the email list. Not everyone even knows that there's a community board and what we do. And so I think to that point, Michelle makes a good, point there. Whether it's us as the committee, just kind of sharing that information a bit more widely with some of the community partners. But I would also think that a lot of them are already kind of very much in the loop on some of this. I think maybe there's some thoughts that we can think about how to better kind of disseminate and do that outreach. And maybe that's one of the committee goals that we can add to that point about how we better share that information and kind of those resources that our community members desperately need. Any other points on new business?
Should we talk about like the Airbnb stuff that's happening? I haven't really read into it too much. I just know they're cracking down on Airbnbs, and maybe that like helps with like open units or like more. I don't know if people are just gonna shut down their businesses or they're gonna open units? Like I need to read more into it. But I
Yeah.
don't know if anyone has background on it.
I haven't been following it closely. Have you? You know a bit more?
I know a little bit. A while back, the city has been fighting the fact that folks we're talking about unstabilized buildings have been using Airbnb instead of renting out to people who need an apartment. They're renting it out as a hotel, which is legal, right? And there's finally a law in effect where everyone has to register, like their actual apartment, like Airbnb has to mandate that anybody in New York has to register, provide their information to the city. And that way the city can track whether it's someone who owns a home versus someone who owns a residential building that's just renting out units instead of, because they're making more money that way by charging tourists who want to be in Manhattan.
Yeah.
And so that hopefully that will lead to more enforcement and a drop in the registered units through Airbnb in New York City. I would argue like, yes, they probably would put it in the market, right? Like if you can't put it in a system to provide it as a hotel, they're gonna end up putting it out in the market because unless they're very rich and they don't care, they want to rent it to everybody. I would figure they want to rent it out so they can at least get some form of income. I mean that's hopefully the impact towards that. The city has been doing lawsuits. There's other organizations. I think Housing Rights Initiative has done things around this, but they normally look at rent stabilized apartments where landlords are not registering them. I know in the last 2 or 3 years there have been big lawsuits with like Kushner and other folks, especially downtown, below 96. A lot of buildings that are supposed to be rent stabilized or rental units have been Airbnbs for a while.
Thank you, Jay. Super helpful. Sounds like maybe one for us to bucket under the committee goal of landlord issues, and maybe that's like a wider thing. I mean, there's so many things that we can address, and I think it's helpful to have on our radar. So thanks for bringing. I'll need to kind of read a bit more on that and inform myself. I see Michelle's on the line, so just Michelle for a quick update. We agreed that for the BRC visit, we'll reach out to you to set up a date and time. And then we already discussed your bit around outreach, and we talked about that can fall under some of the committee goals, and we can think about what that looks like. So outreach on ensuring that community members know about housing opportunities. Anything else under new business? Okay, so with that, I'd like to make a motion, or if someone would like to motion to adjourn the meeting. Okay, there's a second by Richard. Great, it's 8:28 p.m. Thank you, everyone. Really looking forward to a packed year. There's a lot of stuff on our agenda, but really looking forward to working with all of you. Have a good evening, everyone. Thank you.
Have a good night.
Good night.
Everyone.